Hey everyone. Thanks for coming out and spending the time to join us. My name's Evan, and I'll be the Dido presenter today. We also have the Dialpad team here with us today, and they'll be presenting as well. Our kind of co-theme here is AI and productivity, and how AI, specifically in Google and Dialpad technology, is revolutionizing the workplace. I do want to start off by acknowledging why we're here today. For most of the audience, and we did take a survey beforehand, for most of the audience, the reason was around learning practical examples of how AI can help employees. But we actually have a pretty crazy variety of people here today in terms of the actual roles and job functions. So we have everyone from IT help desk all the way up to C-level. We have full stack engineers. We have a couple of AI engineers. So there's a very good chance that I'm going to be stating some things that are fairly obvious to some of the people in the room. So bear with me if you're already well aware of something. And fundamentally, the topic of the first section today is going to be how AI and G Suite can add value to your business. I do want to kick it off by talking a little bit about how Google uses AI more generally speaking, and kind of putting it into three buckets. The first bucket is baked-in AI with productivity that users of software automatically benefit from just by using the software. So this is G Suite. A great example of kind of that pre-baked artificial intelligence, if anyone's used Gmail in their personal lives or professionally. The spam filter in Gmail is trained on the data produced by the billions of Gmail users. And all of the Gmail users in business and on the consumer side automatically benefit from that pre-baked AI. The next kind of bucket that Google provides to their customers is pre-trained APIs. That means Google has used their data set to train an artificial intelligence model that you can plug into your application. Some great examples of that would be the Translate API, so you can deliver your application outputs in multiple languages, or natural language processing, which Google has spent years and years and years understanding the intent of language by analyzing Google searches from all of the trillions of Google searches that have occurred. And then from an AI standpoint, the third bucket that Google brings to their customers, I think is the one that people jump to most commonly in my conversations. That's TensorFlow. That's training machine learning models. That's using data science, and it is more complex, but it also, to apply for a business, but it also provides kind of the greatest greenfield opportunity. You can use your custom data sets to train your custom models. So today I do want to talk about the first category as kind of my priority during the presentation. So I'm going to talk about how G Suite leverages AI in particular. But the organization that I'm a part of, we're called Dido. We're a premier Google Cloud partner, and we actually touch on all three of those categories. So my role is in the collaboration, productivity, efficiency, but we also do modernization, adding those APIs to existing or new applications. We also do training of new ML models with our data scientists. So just a little bit of context on kind of who we are and what we're doing here today. Who in the room, just show of hands, who is very familiar with G Suite? Awesome. We got a couple of hands there, but that's exactly what I like to hear. So G Suite is kind of Gmail, Google Docs, Sheets and Slides, Google Drive. A lot of the tools that you might have seen on a consumer side or as part of an educational organization. And a lot of the times when we go out to events and we talk to people about G Suite, we focus on kind of the high-level pillars. What makes G Suite secure? What makes it effective? What makes it simple? And that's actually not going to be my priority today. My priority today is going to be to give tangible examples of where Google has built AI into their product. And by the way, G Suite is more than just the Gmail Docs, Sheets, Slides, Drive. It's also enterprise-grade chat and meetings. It's also cloud search, which puts the power of a Google-powered search engine on your enterprise data. Not just your mail, not just your files, not just your intranet, but other connected applications like CRMs, local file systems. There's really a lot of power there in just being able to get to your data faster by using a Google-powered search engine. And then I'm not really going to hone in too much on security today, but just be aware that G Suite does come with all the tools to manage your users and keep your data secure as well. So fundamentally, our goal here is to talk about how G Suite uses AI to reimagine how businesses can work by powering teams to be faster, smarter, and more collaborative than with other tools. So those three fundamental pillars of design are what the AI in G Suite is hoping to achieve. Helping you do email faster, helping you do file collaboration, storage, sharing, searching faster. Doing it smarter, getting the right data, not just the right file, but the right information within a file, and then being able to live collaborate while you do that as well. So starting off with making it fast, I do want to talk a little bit about what G Suite does kind of compared to other applications that are out there. G Suite actually comes with true real-time collaboration. So it's built for the cloud. Google as an organization was born in the cloud, helped to invent many aspects of the cloud, and G Suite definitely benefits of being a part of that. Unlike other providers that often have latency issues, their collaboration might rely on users all using a local client. So if some people are on the web and some people are local, the live collaboration may not work so well. Regardless of which interface you're using on the Google side, whether it's your phone, your computer, your browser, the live collaboration is present and seamless. So in G Suite, there's only one version of a document. This greatly reduces the complexity and speed, and helps to speed up collaboration. So people don't have to waste time waiting for the right version to be emailed to them. If you spend 3 hours working on a version that somebody else was also working on, you don't have to go through and reconcile your changes. You are all working together live in the same document in real time. Anyone who's ever done a budget review in Excel has probably had the experience of many departments sending the budget back and forth. And in G Suite, that's just not a challenge. Automatically, everybody has the most up-to-date copy of that budget at all times. So as they make changes, there's no need to reconcile those with the other versions that are out there. So one of the examples of AI that Google uses to make G Suite faster and enable users to get their job done faster, last year, Google released Smart Compose in Gmail. It intelligently auto-completes your email, so it fills in greetings and sign-offs and common phrases, and helps people to kind of quickly write their emails and then move on. Depending on which study you read, the average office worker is spending somewhere between like 5 and 8 or possibly more hours per week in email. So having autocomplete built on top of Google's artificial intelligence can cut that time in half. It's a really powerful way to save time. And by the way, what's really cool about it, it actually becomes customized to the individual user, so it learns from you while you're typing into it. So if you type an address frequently, like the office that you're in, or if there's certain verbiage that you tend to recycle frequently, it actually learns from your individual behavior so that you can still type with your own voice. It doesn't take that away from you in its autofill. It's still learning from everybody else as well, but it actually tailors your results to you while you're composing an email. So the next thing I want to talk about briefly is how G Suite helps people to make their business smarter and harness their data and knowledge better. Teams that are able to leverage their data well make better decisions, more well-informed decisions, and they're able to drive greater business impact fundamentally. So one of the coolest parts of G Suite, and I get a ton of mileage out of this. I've been using G Suite since high school, way too long now. And I've been using Google Sheets as my spreadsheet of choice. And I used to write all of my formulas by hand or copy them from a web page somewhere and tailor them to my purpose. The explore function in Google Sheets uses artificial intelligence and more specifically natural language processing so that you can tangibly ask information or for information from your data. You can type in a question and you can have results produced for you in pivot tables, charts, graphics, formulas that you can then insert into your sheet. So you don't need to be a data analyst to know how to use macros in G Suite. In Sheets, anyone can use Explore to ask their questions in natural language and immediately get an answer powered by Google's AI. And by the way, Google's natural language processing is really good. It uses meaning-based processing. It's quite powerful at understanding what you're going for, even if there's a typo or a slight mistake. It's able to kind of work around that and enable you to be smarter with your data. Another great example of how Google uses AI in G Suite to kind of make your business smarter is Priority in Google Drive. Priority is a page that is designed to help users stay focused and get work done a little bit faster. There's two aspects to it. The first one is suggestions. It actually suggests at the top of the page certain working documents or things that people have commented or added an action item for you to do. And you can address those directly from your file storage platform without needing to open the document. So it intelligently surfaces your next working document without you needing to navigate around and go look for or find it. That's another area where most knowledge workers or office workers spend around 20%, about around 8 hours of their work week, looking for information. So sometimes that information is in a file. Sometimes it's in an email. Sometimes it's in an intranet. Sometimes somebody else has it. It might be siloed. If the Priority can get this right 1 in 8 times, that saves you an hour every week of your life. And by the way, it gets it right a lot more frequently than that. And then finally, I do want to talk about the Security Center in G Suite. The Security Center is designed to help to prevent threats before they happen and actually proactively surface security threats to your email or file environment, things like document overshares, anomaly detection, compiling your security positioning into very easy to understand and unified dashboards. Admins, on average, often get more than 5,000 alerts per day. So with that volume of alerts, it's not really that surprising that less than half of alerts that admins receive are actually investigated. And by investigated, I don't mean assigned and explored and researched. I mean even clicked. I call a click an investigation at this point. That's how far my standards have sunk on that. But there's so much information that's constantly being thrown at admins that's just the reality of the situation. They have to try very hard to separate the signal from the noise. So the G Suite unified dashboards, as long as the Alert Center, which are both built on top of artificial intelligence, help to improve organizational security positioning by surfacing the right threats. Quite simply, understanding what is a healthy environment based on healthy environments, and understanding what is unhealthy based on incidents that occur. So the last aspect or kind of fundamental pillar to the G Suite environment that I want to talk about a little bit is making it together, or being collaborative and working together. I think historically we can pretty conclusively say that organizations that prioritize collaboration tend to have or to be more successful over the long term, and it tends to be a cornerstone of that success. So in G Suite, we've talked about live collaboration, but there's also other aspects that are kind of baked in here. So for example, in the Google Hangouts Meet, that's the video conferencing in G Suite, the video or webcam is on by default. So people are encouraged to take face-to-face meetings even when they're not face-to-face. So that's kind of an example of how Google gets it right just on the native setting. But taking that a step further, when people work together, G Suite actually uses artificial intelligence to understand how they might meet together. What conference rooms might they need for this meeting? If they're in separate locations and they both need conference rooms, which are their favorites? Let's put them in those. Which ones do they choose when they sit down and try to find a conference room? Is it near their desk? You can include location data in your G Suite fields, and then G Suite will use artificial intelligence to help to assign and promote the right rooms for the right people. And this is an example of an iterative improvement of AI. Whenever I book a meeting, which is 10 times a day, something like that, this makes it take 10 seconds less of looking to find a room. So I'm saving a minute. That doesn't seem like much, but combined with the overtime, certainly, but with all of the other iterative artificial intelligence in G Suite, we're able to see phenomenal gains in productivity just by simply using G Suite, even for users that have used Microsoft their entire lives. So in G Suite, there's also the ability to create, contribute, and comment all together. And that really helps the end product kind of come out stronger because it just includes more points of view. And a great example of that is Hangouts chat, how easy it is to share files directly from Drive and then get real-time feedback without needing to set additional file and folder permissions that are automatically interpreted and set for you. And with minimum viable privilege so that the user can review the document without being able to edit, for example. Now, taking that a step further, Google has added artificial intelligence to grammar within those documents in order to assist team members in communicating with one another more clearly. If you're working against a deadline to create many documents daily, having correct grammar is probably not the first thing on your mind. But Google has taken kind of the spell check that's been around for over a decade, further than any technology provider, by using machine-learned translation techniques to help catch tricky grammatical errors using grammar suggestions in docs. So again, it uses natural language processing. It doesn't just literally translate the word and see if that word makes grammatical sense from a dictionary standpoint. It actually knows the difference between affect and effect, for example. It actually knows the difference between the meaning and the intent of the statement and can suggest a grammar connection or correction using that information. Additionally, working across time zones and offices with G Suite is really, really easy and intuitive. The departmental barriers of working in a large organization are kind of broken down as the correct information is intelligently surfaced to connect people with the information that they need. So for example, giving people in the field really, really quick and easy portals to provide real-time feedback to improve information flow and help all of the team members, whether they're on site or remotely or working remote, contribute. So I've talked about how G Suite helps businesses kind of work faster, smarter, more collaboratively, but there is a tangible financial result here. Google commissioned with Forrester what they call a total economic impact analysis. And based upon a number of interviews with customers, they learned that there are really 4 areas that G Suite delivers measurable value. Number 1 is revenue growth. Number 2 is employee efficiency, risk mitigation, and IT cost savings. And they achieve that by companies that use G Suite compared to their competition using G Suite for over a year, saw a 1.5% greater year-over-year revenue increase than organizations that were comparable that did not use G Suite. From a time savings standpoint, I talked about those iterative features where there's slight improvements that come from all of these little pieces that seem very small when you think about, oh, I don't need to add a meeting to my invite. It's added for me. But the reality is that people who use G Suite get an additional month out of the year. That's almost 10% higher productivity. From a risk mitigation standpoint, using G Suite security practices, by the way, Google as an organization uses these same practices that they publish for their customers, and they're renowned in the technology industry for having remarkably few data breaches and incidents, even deliberate ones from employees, which for an enterprise organization is quite impressive, in my understanding. And the risk of data breach just by using G Suite and following those best practices goes down by 95%. And then from an IT tech support standpoint, there's just a huge decrease in the need for on-demand tech support. 20% is the rough ballpark there. So, kind of talking about, what that impact is and how we achieve that with G Suite, I want to just give a couple of last kind of parting thoughts. If you went to an airport and you looked out on a runway and you saw this plane, it might be fun a little bit, but I probably wouldn't board it. And they might tell you it's a plane, it has wings, it has wheels, it could theoretically take off and land. It has seats with seat belts, but it's not really a plane. It's a car with wings bolted on. And it's actually not really a new form of transportation. It's an attempt to force a legacy form of technology to do something it wasn't really designed for. So in the 21st century, we know that the right solution for air travel looks very different than this. And if we want to effectively fly long distance, we need something that's purpose-built for that reason, an actual plane. So G Suite is the productivity equivalent of that. G Suite was built for the cloud from the beginning. It gives Google an inherent advantage against legacy tools like, for example, Microsoft Office. And this means that Google's able to deliver their seamless real-time collaboration, powerful search, and proactive security tools that scale the signals within your environment to ensure security. And then I just wanted to kind of wrap up with this kind of final kind of note here, that real-time collaboration is only powerful if people actually adopt it. And if some people are working from a desktop app and some people are working from a cloud app, it just won't work. There is a fundamental aspect of using G Suite that we see consistently and across the board with all of the thousands of organizations that we deploy every year, that there's a cultural shift that comes along with using G Suite. People start to work more intelligently. They start to think about how they might automate a process instead of repeating that exact same workflow hundreds or thousands of times. And Google's artificial intelligence uses the same power behind all of their 7 different applications that have over 1 billion users, those same consumer services like Maps and Google Search that virtually everyone relies on, and bakes that same power into G Suite. So with that, I'll go ahead and hand off to the Dialpad team. But thank you guys again so much for the time. I'll be around after the presentation to chat about all of those 3 different types of AI, not just the G Suite side, even though that is my main area. So if you do have questions, definitely feel free to let me know.
Alrighty. Hey everybody, I'm Ryder Mundowitz. I'm an enterprise sales manager with Dialpad. Well, it's really bright up here. You did a great job. So just paying, I used to work at Google in the YouTube department for a few years, and paying homage to that, seeing as we're in their office, I thought we'd start off with 3 things that somebody's learned from YouTube. Everybody's got one. You guys haven't learned a single thing from watching a YouTube video? What do you got?
I know how to create different kinds of, for like guitar.
Yeah. Oh, like.
I can tune, I can refret it, I can put in new pickups.
That's a lot. That's expensive to learn from a human, too. Cool. Another?
I learned how to install Python on a Raspberry Pi.
There you go. Nice. All right, one last one, and I'll share mine, which is a little more embarrassing. Oh, there you go. Mine's a little dorkier. I was gifted a didgeridoo, which is like an Australian wind instrument, when I was living in St. Louis. And if you can imagine, there's nobody that knows how to instruct you on how to do that. So I actually learned how to play that instrument, which is not very helpful at all in real life. And I've never been once somebody to play it, but that's my takeaway. So cool. I wanted to quickly give you some context. Dialpad on who we are. So we're a business communications provider. This is going to be like kind of our area of expertise or authority on the matter. We are an all-in-one business communication solution with desk phones, soft apps or soft phones, and also call centers for sales and support teams. And actually, uniquely, we are actually responsible. We're the team behind Google Voice. And we actually spun out of Google with a seed investment from Google Ventures. And since then, we've actually raised over $100 million in funding, have 55,000 paying customers, and operate globally in over 60 countries. So really quickly, we'll get into the use cases here. I just wanted to give you two kind of general trends, and I don't think either of these are going to be too surprising for you. But one, the cloud is making us super productive. I think, as you could tell from the presentation just now, like there was a host of stats, but the great thing is like most of us, if we don't use G Suite in our work lives, we definitely use it in our personal lives. And so we're the benefactors of like autocomplete and like getting, booking a flight and having it automatic on your calendar and all those little ways you can like shave weight out of your daily routine, which is awesome. I think when we think about how it's made us more productive, there's kind of two facets. So you have kind of IT administration, right? On-prem file storage, on-prem email, all that's like super intensive to manage. Putting up a new office is a really big pain in the rear, right? Like remote working really wasn't a thing. And now that we're seeing IT administration with like instant deployments, like, deeply integrated with the rest of your systems, IT is actually getting to focus on a lot more strategic initiatives. Now they're actually building technology internally or doing custom development on top of current platforms. And they're not just like crushing, tickets around like basic connectivity issues, which is awesome. So that's a really big change for like how companies are staffing up and how they really let their workforce develop. But the other one is like employee work has changed. I mean, Google Drive and like collaboration on those documents, that was like, I had my first aha moment in 2011. I was like, I was brand new at this company and they put me on the worst project. I had to like coordinate between a product marketing manager in the UK and a designer in New Zealand, and I was in San Francisco. And like, we had one call and that was the only one I forced them to take because we were able to crush the rest of it out just in the comments on a doc. And I was like, okay, this is pretty awesome because either one of these teams would have to go if we wanted to do these projects more frequently and more often. It was like completely untenable. But I think that kind of paves the way for like really the big change in cloud or in cloud technology and how it's really changing the way that companies can work or how they staff up, really where they resource their talent. But what's pretty surprising is actually only 60% of enterprises have adopted some form of cloud technology. Now I say that while knowing that 71% of all stats are made up on the spot. So take that for what it's worth. But you see this progression happen pretty consistently, right? Like typically they go with CRM, HubSpot, Marketo. That's kind of one of the first big ones. And we see a lot of companies that are still, letting some legacy on-prem technology, for example, and like voice technology, that kind of just sits there and hums. There's not a big need for change. So, I actually know one of the most cutting edge investors in Silicon Valley that's managing a lot of money for like the Facebook owners, still on-prem telecommunications technology. So there's plenty of companies out there that are still making that migration, but you really see it with CRM, then going to like Files, Dropbox, Box, or SharePoint if you unfortunately have to deal with that one. And then of course G Suite, O365. And now, a really big shift for us, at least what we're seeing and why we're seeing so much success is this shift to the cloud with voice technology, with video conferencing, and all of that. So the second big trend is that, AI is making us far more effective. And I think that when you think about this trend, a lot of people are like, oh, robots are going to come take your jobs. We see it much more as like augmented intelligence and exactly like what we're talking about with like autocompletes on sentences while you're writing, suggesting people that you are going to meet with, or if you have their calendars pulled up, automatically bringing them in, all that cool stuff that you see where it shaves weight. And I think the next stage of this is actually going to be taking a lot of those menial tasks like basic, routing of calls toward the right person or the right support agent that speaks that language and just completely automating that. So with that, we see really a tremendous opportunity to leverage voice. This is actually a study from Salesforce just last year that 68% of business was still conducted over the phone. So obviously, email's still there. I don't see a slice for Slack. That might be other because they're supposed to kill email. But voice is still the predominant way and the most trusted way, aside from in-person meetings, that we're still doing business. And it's actually one of the least documented ones. So if you think about voice as like a data set, it's still relatively offline until now, which is what we're pretty excited about. So there's a lot of opportunities to leverage voice as an input. And I think you're starting to see that with the curve of B2C to B2B. Like most new technologies get adopted by consumers, then they go to B2B. So if you think about like social media, we all started sharing stuff, commenting, then brands came on, and then we got to like spam them on their account to get customer service faster because it was public. And so you see that transition happen with all these other major technologies, and we're really starting to see it with voice and connectivity. So now we're not just talking to Siri or having Siri brought into our cars or SoundHound with all the Mercedes-Benz cars that are coming out now. But you're actually seeing in the last 6 months some big trends on voice coming into the enterprise. So Apple and Salesforce partnering up to bring Siri into Salesforce. I mean, their first use case, which is awesome when you think about what they're marketing it for, because we're going to show some really cool stuff right after this. But just dictating speech to text into meeting notes, that was like their aha marketable moment. And the industry in reality is so much beyond that. It's pretty awesome. So with that, the technologies that are actually helping us utilize voice are rapidly advancing, and that's one of the biggest gateways to voice becoming a data set. Is that not only is speech recognition getting better, so just taking speech and putting that into text, but also natural language processing has made leaps and bounds of improvements. And we kind of just saw a little bit of discussion around that on the last presentation. But not only can we just now transcribe a call and say, this is what was said, but it's actually saying, hey, that was actually an action item, follow up on that, right? Or hey, that was a competitor mention. Let's pull some content up for the support agent to figure out how we can position against that and stay on brand. And so because we've seen this technology just make leaps and bounds of improvements, that's really opening the door for a very different way of working, especially when it comes to one of your most important channels, which is voice. So looking at intelligent assistants, actually having auto-generated call summaries, action items and decision points, and automated call follow-ups. This is actually some functionality that Dialpad has in the market today. And so anytime we have an internal meeting on one of our Hangouts or we call it Uber conference, it actually generates meeting notes that are transcribed and then action items. And I mean, transcription is still getting there. It's not exactly word for word, but what I've actually found is that most nouns and adjectives that are very recognizable are picked up. So you can actually go back and search that and figure out what company were we talking about, what did I say we were going to do, or who was supposed to follow up on that point, which is pretty cool. Also, understanding conversations in real time, which is something that really not a lot of people are familiar with, and where we like to think we're the coolest thing on earth, especially when you're at a tech company. That's kind of one of the things that you really eat, sleep, and breathe every day. But we haven't seen anybody else that's doing this type of stuff in real time. So for Dialpad, for example, let's say you're a support agent and you're in Salesforce Service Cloud and you get a call coming in, that call's automatically being transcribed. So now what we're getting at is that there's no more black hole of what happened on that call, did somebody take good notes? And I mean, just a live transcript is pretty cool, right? I mean, a lot of admin. I mean, the very interesting thing about employee productivity versus sales rep or agent productivity is that they're doing hundreds of these a day. We're having maybe 8 meetings is a rough day. So if you think about that 1 minute we save, it's getting exponentially more important and more valuable to a company when you have dozens of agents doing that on a single day. But even then, automating some of the note taking, some of the IT admin that they have to, or the note admin. Now what we're actually getting into in terms of applications of AI in the workplace is guiding the conversations. And this is actually super cool. Sorry, let me just double check really quick if there's another one coming in. Yep. So now, based on spoken word, and because technology has gotten so good that we can do this in real time, we're actually suggesting responses to people or guiding them through a playbook based on what's being discussed. So you can actually see this live if you demo our product. For example, again, I'm in sales, one of the worlds I know best, but you have people that are, your inside sales team. They get on calls and say, hey, do you have the right budget for this product, or are we the wrong fit for you, right? Their goal is to get a few pieces of information and set you up with the right person on that team, whether it's a territory, or just figure out if it's not even a good time for that, you just spend your time on as a customer or us as an organization. And actually, as you're going through and saying, well, we're in this range or we're comparative to this product, it'll actually cross off budget. It'll say, hey, who else needs to be involved in this decision? Or hey, is this something that's really pressing? Or is this a 2020, 2021 project? And actually identifying that, again, not only just through speech recognition, but through natural language processing and picking up on that's what your business is keying into. And this is stuff that we haven't seen anywhere else in the market today. We're pretty excited about. Along with that, and you'll see some more about this, but tracking sentiment, right? Or compliance. So if you're in anything financial services related, you're regulated by FINRA. That means that you can be asked to produce an audit of anything that was discussed on a call. And if somebody's saying that you said one thing and misrepresented it, and you're trying to say another, and you have very poor notes or just email communications, it's not a great process to go through. So a lot of call recording happens there, but this is very different from call recording in the fact that we're transcribing it, we're automatically putting that into a searchable CRM that you can actually take and again, search how many times was this conversation coming up, what was the sentiment of that discussion around a competitor, a price point, a feature set, et cetera. So we think about actually compliance. This is like kind of what it actually looks like on our product to go through the actual playbook. So I think that's actually a sales example right there too. See, the other cool thing, and this is what I think is super exciting, is like, I'm a little more newer to the customer service industry, but customer service managers have a pretty rough gig sometimes. I mean, they are basically on call at all times. They're almost consistently understaffed. And also, they basically have to sit through and do QA for like 1 to 2 hours a day. So they literally listen to all the recorded calls that came into their call center to make sure they have enough for each agent, and then literally just listen to it, take notes, and try to provide coaching. We're fundamentally changing the way that these teams are spending their time in those individuals that are super high value, but in real time saying this is what is being discussed on all of your calls. And actually this high value customer just went from positive to negative. Now that could, some managers might want to swoop in right away, but that's actually a pretty good coaching moment for an entry level employee and seeing how they navigate that. So without having to leave whatever meeting they're in, or even take the time to barge onto the call, they can click into a transcript, see what's being said, if it's a competitor mentioned, a pricing objection, whatever, seeing how that's being handled, and then decide if they want to barge in. The best thing about this too is it's actually significantly improving customer experience because you're not getting up-leveled to a manager and having to re-explain yourself after you're super pissed off for 15 minutes. They're coming in and saying, hey, Ryan, I know you're delayed 3 times. I know we canceled that flight for what seems like no reason, but I got you. Here's what we're going to do. Like, that's next-level customer support and something that, again, is really, really difficult to do when you think about how these teams are allocating time and the technology that was available up until only a year ago. And then what's also super exciting, and I think like this is really new for the industry. We're one of the only providers that are doing real-time sentiment tracking, real-time guiding of calls. But I really do believe that in about a year or 2 years, you're gonna have voice as a total data set. So something that we just released last month is called call analytics. And you can actually, again, so all of these calls, voice calls that you're relying on crappy CRM notes. I was one of the biggest proponents of bad Salesforce notes. And now what you're saying is all these calls are transcribed and now they're searchable. You can also compare mentions of products, competitors, any issues, and you can put that up against maybe media events. You can put that up against your product release. Not only do you get like, this is a very generic slide, it just shows you the number of counts somebody said, pricing versus password reset, but we have a couple competitors. We can throw in RingCentral and see how often they come up, see what the sentiment was of how they came up, see what customers are talking about when they say real-time sentiment tracking and RingCentral. I can immediately hone into like the 10 calls where somebody was talking about if that customer even has that functionality or what people think about it or what active customers are saying about those things. And that's just a level of intel into like what your customers are saying, how they're feeling that most companies really don't have. You pay $50,000 a year for like voice of the customer, they do blind interviews, and you get like some super biased data back. You literally have like your finger on the pulse of what customers are saying, when they're saying it, what the sentiment is, all that kind of cool stuff. So I think in a year or two, people are gonna be viewing voice interactions and how they pull that into their BI systems for like data analysis just as intently as they are with like website impressions and like a whole host of other very data-rich sources. So with that, if you guys wanna learn more, hit one of us up in the back of the room, or you can check out dialpad.com. And with that, I'll leave you with the first voice AI additions.
We're looking for AI that can kind of give our sales teams an edge.
Behold!
We're looking for AI that can kind of give our sales teams
Nice
an
recorder.
edge.
Behold again!
All right, nice recorder.
So that you're just recording our voices and playing it back to us? Is that
You're just recording our voices and playing it back to us? Is that
cool? Yeah, I remember saying it before.
Is there anything else you can show us?
This is what the children do. Behold!
I don't know what I expected. Cool, that's it for us. We're Dialpad. Thanks for having us.